Welcome to our Cajun Comfort episode of the Co-op Cookin Show, powered by Arkansas Valley Electric. I'm your host, Emily Staten.
And I'm your guest host, Samantha Renard.
Samantha was born and raised in the outskirts of New Orleans, and today our recipes come straight from her family cookbook.
I'm so excited to share some of our recipes with you.
Let's get started. So up first is our lively shrimp casserole from Samantha's grandmother. It was a recipe that she made for Samantha when you were young, right?
Yes.
And we're gonna recreate it today. So at first we're going to go ahead and chop the onion and the bell pepper. So now we have the bell pepper and onion chopped up, and we're going to saute them in the butter.
So the first thing you want to do is melt your butter in the pan. And we're going to use 1.5 sticks of butter. While your butter's melting and your vegetables are sauteing, you're going to take 1 can of Rotel, French onion soup, and add the cream of chicken. And then you're going to mix those 3 ingredients together. So whenever your butter's all melted in your pan, you're going to want to add your onions and bell peppers. And then just let your onions and bell peppers cook in the butter until your onions are softened.
So this is a recipe that your grandma made when you were younger.
Yes, this is my grandmother's go-to casserole recipe. She always has one in the freezer, and she makes it anytime anybody comes over. She keeps it as her last-minute guest casserole type of deal. So if you ever call, we have a bad tendency of calling our grandmothers the day before and saying, hey, we'll be in town tomorrow, and first thing she does is go and pull her shrimp casserole out of the freezer and get it ready for the next day.
That's so fun.
A lot of the ingredients are just pantry staples. It's not a long ingredient list. If you have shrimp in your freezer and you happen to have the canned ingredients, the French onion soup and the cream of chicken and the Rotel, then you can make it in a flash. And it's really hands-off too. You just have a couple things to do in the beginning, and then you throw it in the oven for 1.5 hours and you can enjoy your guest.
And your grandmother, she lives in New Orleans, right?
Yes, yeah. So I was born and raised in New Orleans, and a lot of my family's from New Orleans. She actually lives in Kenner, Louisiana, which is about half an hour outside of New Orleans, on the west side of New Orleans, in Jefferson Parish. But yeah, so she's lived there her whole life. Our family's lived there. She's actually originally from around Biloxi, Mississippi. So Ocean Springs is where they grew up and where she lived, but they moved. My grandpa, when they got married, they moved to New Orleans, and yeah, they've been there ever since.
That's so cool.
I don't think they'll ever leave. So when your onions are soft, it's time to add your shrimp.
And that was 2 pounds of shrimp, right?
Correct, 2 pounds of shrimp. As your shrimp is cooking, you're going to want to go ahead and add 2 cups of uncooked rice to the soup mixture we made earlier.
So what do you think that your favorite Cajun dish growing up was?
So my mom makes a really good gumbo. She doesn't eat very much seafood for someone from Louisiana, yeah. So she makes a sausage and chicken gumbo, which is really good. And then my grandmother's seafood gumbo is really good. We used to have that all the time when I was growing up. And also really like mufaladas, which are just a sandwich. Yeah.
So what is that?
So it's an Italian sandwich it's a round bread. It's got like sesame seeds on top of the bread. I don't know if you can get just the bread at the store, but it's got ham and salami and different kinds of cheeses, Swiss cheese, and then on top, and you bake all that, and then on top it's got an olive salad, which is just like olives and some other stuff in oil, and then you put that on top of it and you slice it into like pie shapes.
Yeah.
And it's a really good sandwich.
It sounds so good.
My stepmom used to make those for us, at least once, once a month at least, sometimes twice a month. Yeah, they were really good. So once your shrimp is cooked, you can go ahead and add your shrimp and vegetable mixture to the soup mixture and the rice that we had. And then you just want to mix all that together. It's going to be a little liquidy, but that's fine. You put the uncooked rice in there, so that rice is going to soak up that liquid. So then once all that's mixed, you're going to want to transfer it into a buttered or greased baking dish. Once all your ingredients are in your dish, you're going to want to put it into a 350-degree preheated oven for about 1 hour and 15 minutes or until it's set.
Okay, so the lively shrimp casserole
Yes.
is done baking, and we're gonna try it.
Good.
It's so good.
Mm-hmm.
I think it tastes even better than it smells, and that's a big compliment.
Something quick, easy was mostly hands-off time.
Right.
You just kind of saute your shrimp and your vegetables and your butter and then throw everything together, and
Yeah.
all pantry staples. Just keep the canned stuff in your pantry and you'll always have a dish ready for your guests when they come over.
You're right, and it's packed with flavor.
And it looks nice. So
Yeah,
it's very good for guests.
It is. I'll definitely make it.
Perfect.
Okay, on to the next one. Up next is her Nana Seafood Gumbo, which is the one that I am personally most excited about, and maybe has been the talk of the office.
Okay.
Getting ready for this cooking show. So, take it away.
So yeah, my grandma makes a seafood gumbo. It's kind of a tomato-based recipe gumbo. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get all of our ingredients chopped, and then we're going to move on to making our roux. So the vegetables that we're going to need to chop are onions, bell peppers, some celery, and then some okra as well. And then for a topping, we'll do green onions and parsley.
Perfect. Tell me a little bit about what you do at the cooperative.
Yeah, so I'm a system engineer for Arkansas Valley, and what that means is we really just look at the power lines and the grid and kind of work on reliability and making sure everybody's power stays on most of the time, as most as we can. So if there's any issues as far as lights blinking or any breakers operating when they shouldn't be operating, that's some of the stuff we'll investigate and look at. And we look at improvements for the grid. So we're working on a smart grid project right now, converting all of our downline devices, so all the equipment that's on the grid, working to move that over into smart grid, which will give our members a lot more information on their end and just information about their energy usage. And then we work on some new, I help a little bit. Our other engineer actually does a lot of the design work for substations and stuff, but I'll help a little bit on substation stuff, a little bit of solar.
Yeah.
So we kind of all work together. So basically anything you have for engineering, then it's going to be one of us working on it. So you'll notice we're cutting a lot of the same ingredients for the gumbo as we did for the shrimp casserole, and that's because a lot of Cajun food or Creole food has the same base, and it's actually called I call it the Holy Trinity, but it's onions, bell pepper, and celery. So a lot of dishes that you'll see in the Deep South or Louisiana are all going to start with those same 3 ingredients, and they all get basically cooked down in butter.
So, as we were getting ready today to cook, Samantha walked in and she brought bags of stuff. So, you're gonna notice that our okra, she grew in her garden. The shrimp stock for the gumbo, she made herself. She's quite the homemaker, and you would never guess it.
I'm just terrible at wasting things. I don't like to waste anything, so.
I feel like you're just so quiet about it that like people just don't know.
Yeah.
But I think it's so cool.
The shrimp peels? No, we can't throw those away.
Shrimp stock it is.
Yeah.
If someone were to not have shrimp stock at home,
Yep.
what would they do to replace that or substitute it?
Yeah, so that's the best part about gumbo is you can make gumbo your own.
Yeah.
So we're following a recipe today just because it's my grandma's recipe, but she
Yes.
doesn't even follow her recipe every time. You can buy shrimp stock at the store. You can use any other kind of stock if you have chicken stock, whatever. Since it's all seafood, I probably wouldn't use beef stock, but
Right.
I mean, you can use all water. You can use half and half. You can do whatever you want. And I mean, same for the ingredients as well. So, I mean, there's always a big debate about okra and gumbo and whether you should or should not put okra in there, but if you think okra is super slimy and you don't like it, don't put it in there. It's all about just use whatever you have or use whatever you like or whatever your family's gonna eat. Don't always follow a recipe for gumbo if your family's not gonna eat it.
Right. It's kind of the nature of the dish.
Yeah. Your first step when you're making gumbo is to make a roux. And a roux is just going to be your thickening agent, and it's always 1 part fat to 1 part flour. And you can use any fat that you want. The recipe that my grandma uses that we're making actually calls for shortening. She uses like the stick shortening or the big Crisco can of shortening, but I prefer butter, so we're going to use butter here. So we're using 1 part butter, 1 part flour, and we're going to do 1 cup. So we're going to first melt our 1 cup of butter.
Which is also 2 sticks.
Yes.
For those of you that don't remember off the top of your head.
And you can use any fat. I mean, if you have like lard, pork fat, shortening, butter, margarine even if you want.
Yeah.
Bacon fat, people use bacon fat. I mean, literally any fat, just as long as it's 1 part flour, 1 part fat.
Perfect. And we'll let it melt.
Now what you want to do is whisk all of the flour into your butter until it's incorporated in there. And it'll get pretty thick and then it'll thin out a little bit. But what you want to do is constantly stir until it gets to a good color. Your roux will very easily burn, so you have to pretty much just stand there and stir it until it gets to the color.
So you said that this recipe was Creole.
Yes.
Not Cajun.
Yeah, so I mean the lines are very blurred at this point in time. So Creole recipes have come over, or originally they were European settlers who came over to America and especially the South. They brought a lot, I guess like a finer palate. So they cook with a lot of like luxury ingredients, which would be like butters and milks and creams and tomatoes. So a lot of the Creole dishes will have like a tomato base to them.
Gotcha.
But Cajun dishes are really, originally a lot of the Acadianas from Nova Scotia came down. They had some trouble up there and they migrated down. And so when they migrated down, they were like simple farming families.
Yeah.
So they use a lot of simple ingredients, just what they had on hand, what they could grow. And so that kind of leads to Cajun. And then of course all the African heritage and everything got mixed into both of them. And now the lines are kind of really blurred, but anything that's got kind of a tomato base in it will be a Creole dish, and then if it's just spicy and herb heavy, and then a lot of seafood. So since Cajun was like simple farming, they did a lot of hunting and trapping.
Right.
So a lot of your heavy seafood dishes are Cajun dishes because it was what they could catch, what they could trap and use. So a lot of your crawfish etouffees, a lot of stuff like that will be even like the darker jambalaya, so like the jambalaya that y'all made with clay, so that's more of a Cajun dish. If we made jambalaya, it would be, we use like more of a tomato based jambalaya, so it's a little bit lighter and kind of redder in color.
Yeah.
So there's a difference. So this gumbo is going to be a little bit different color than the gumbo that you'd be used to. It's not a super dark gumbo, deep gumbo. It's a lighter color, kind of a reddish tint to it.
Because of that tomato base.
Yeah, because of the tomato base. So we'll be adding tomato sauce and crushed tomatoes into it. So the next thing we're going to do is dump our roux into a deep pot. Today we're going to use 1 quart of shrimp stock and 1 quart of water. So as you add liquid to your roux, it's going to get very clumpy and it's going to get very dry. So you're going to have to really add that liquid in slowly and make sure you're stirring it while you add that in there, and then eventually it'll all get kind of liquefy and get back together. And then you're going to add the rest of your liquid. We're adding another quart of water for a total of 2 quarts of liquid. The next thing we're going to do is add a small can of tomato sauce, and then we're going to add a can of tomatoes. You can use fresh tomatoes if you want. My grandma prefers whole canned tomatoes, prefer diced tomatoes, whatever you're feeling. As you can see, this is a little bit of a kind of pinkish reddish color, and so our gumbo is not going to be a super dark gumbo like I talked about. It's going to be that Creole gumbo. It's kind of a redder base. So you're going to let your tomatoes and your liquid cook for about 5 minutes. Our liquid and roux and tomatoes have been simmering or have been heating up for about 5 minutes. So we're going to go ahead and add our vegetables. And our vegetables were the onion, bell pepper, celery, and okra.
Perfect.
So then once you add your vegetables, you want to go ahead and let them cook for about 10 minutes more until everything's heated. So all of our vegetables have been cooking in our gumbo for a little bit now. So the next thing we're going to do is add all of our seafood. So today we're using about 3 pounds of shrimp. 1.5 pints of oysters, and then some crab. And you can use whatever you want, whatever seafood you have available. If you don't like oysters, don't put oysters, or you can use fresh crab, canned crab, frozen crab, whatever you have. And then we're also gonna add about 1/2 cup of green onions and 1/4 cup of parsley.
I know these taste good, but they don't look good.
Yeah. Oysters are not anybody's favorite raw.
And the crab meat.
Next we'll add our green onions and parsley. So now what you're going to do is, if you want to season your gumbo, you can either use a Cajun seasoning, any seasoning you have at home, some hot sauce, salt and pepper, and then you'll season it a little bit, and then you'll let it cook for about 30 minutes more. It's pretty thick right now, so if you want a thinner gumbo, add a little bit more water or more stock. If you like it thick, then you just leave it like this. So we're going to add black pepper, we'll add some salt, and then some hot sauce.
We're cooking the rice to put the gumbo on, right?
Yeah, so typically gumbo is served over rice in a bowl, or you can just have it in a bowl if you want, but typically it's served over rice with a piece of French bread. So our gumbo's been simmering for about 30 minutes now, and it looks to be about done. During this time, you can adjust the thickness if you need to. If you think it's a little too thick, just add some water, and then you can adjust your seasoning to add whatever seasonings you want to it. And then it's ready to go once your rice is finished.
Perfect. You want to taste it?
Yes.
Ready?
Yes. What do you think?
It's very good.
Yeah.
It's definitely not the gumbo that I expected.
Yes.
But I really like it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not, it kind of takes you a little off guard, just the color and everything. It's not traditional gumbo, but yeah, it's really good.
There's so much in it. So do you think that this kind of gumbo is your favorite, or like the darker, more traditional?
So I like them both. My grandma makes this a lot. She probably makes it a couple times a year. If I'm making gumbo, I choose to make a darker roux gumbo, kind of a more traditional gumbo style, but either way, they're both really good.
They are really good. I like it. I like the okra. I know that's controversial, but
Yes.
I think it's delicious.
And the longer you cook it, so our vegetables are still kind of crisp in there.
Mm-hmm.
If you like super soft vegetables, just cook it a little longer. I mean, do
Right.
whatever you need, yeah. Okay.
Now to the dessert.
Yes, dessert.
Our final recipe and our dessert for today is the Calamia sand tarts. So this is an original family recipe, right?
Yeah. So it's from my dad's side of the family. They've made it for generations. So the first thing we're gonna do is mix our dry ingredients together. So your dry ingredients are gonna be flour, powdered sugar, and salt. We're gonna need
staples.
Yes, the staples. So you're gonna take 2.5 cups of flour, 1/2 cup of powdered sugar. Perfect. 1/2 teaspoon of salt. You're going to want to sift all your dry ingredients together. And then you're going to prepare your wet ingredients. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to take 1 stick of butter and 1 stick of margarine, softened at room temperature, and add them to a bowl. And then you're going to cream this together with a little bit of your dry ingredient mixture. If you wanted to use all butter, you could use all butter. My family just does 1 stick margarine, 1 stick butter. So once you get your butter creamed together and it's nice and fluffy, you're going to go ahead and add 1 ounce of vanilla extract. Once your vanilla is fully mixed into your butter mixture, you're going to go ahead and add the rest of your dry ingredients a little at a time until everything is mixed.
Now we've got it all mixed together.
Yes. So once everything's all mixed together, the last thing you're going to do is take 1/4 cup of chopped pecans, add it in there, and then mix those in. And then once that's all mixed together, you're ready to go ahead and shape your dough. So next you're going to want to shape your cookies. And what you do is you're going to just take a good amount of dough, kind of roll it, and you're going to make like a crescent shape.
So So tell me a little bit about the history of these cookies and what they mean to your family when you would make them.
Yeah, this recipe came from my dad's side of the family. And his mom unfortunately passed away when she was pretty young, so we don't have too many memories with her, but this is one of the things that we remember, and we can kind of keep her alive and keep making these cookies. And also the time that you'd probably see these the most, like especially down in Louisiana, is during St. Joseph's, on St. Joseph's Day. They make giant St. Joseph's altars. Never seen one, they're very awesome. So St. Joseph is the patron saint of Sicily, and he's credited with preventing a famine in Sicily back in the Middle Ages. And so the people prayed, and they said that if they would receive rain for their crops to grow, then they would do a big feast for St. Joseph. And it did rain and their crops did grow, so they ended up having a feast. And so every year that's still celebrated on St. Joseph's Day in March. So they go and they build these really big elaborate altars in the church, and there's 3 tiers, and I mean there's just all kinds of stuff on there, and it's a big Italian population, so it's a lot of Italian style cookies, and these are something that you find on that St. Joseph's altar. So now that we have our cocoon shaped, we're going to put them in a 350-degree oven for 20 to 25 minutes. So our cookies have been in the oven for about 30 minutes, so we're going to go ahead and take them out. You want to make sure that they're evenly tan across all of them. And you want to watch them because these cookies will burn really easy with that powdered sugar in there. So while the cookies are still hot, what you want to do is take and roll them in some powdered sugar. So we're just going to coat them in some powdered sugar. You don't have to get it perfect. You'll re-roll them again in the powdered sugar. You just kind of want to coat them now, but since they're warm, some of that powdered sugar will melt. Alright, so once your cookies have cooled, you want to go ahead and recoat them in powdered sugar to make sure they're completely coated and all that powdered sugar didn't melt, and then they're ready to eat.
I can tell this is going to be messy.
Oh yeah. Where did our shirt?
Go for it.
Oh man.
You want us to roll you one, Barbara?
Sure.
You can be like a little guest pop up
Yeah.
in the episode.
I think Barbara
Like a fine
needs
Barbara.
to be in it.
I have not one stitch of makeup on.
We'll come to you. We'll come
And I'm
to
an
you.
Oompa Loompa.
Barbara's very pregnant.
Y'all haven't noticed
She's
this
not an
part?
Oompa Loompa.
Oh, these are good.
That is so good.
And you can definitely eat more than one.
Yeah, because these low calorie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've had like pecan shortbread cookies from the store, but I've never had one that tastes this good.
Pretty simple recipe, pretty fast. You just let them cook, and then whenever they're done, you can just store them in an airtight container, and they'll last for a couple days.
That's awesome. And you said this was somebody's favorite, right? Your dad's favorite?
Yeah, so my dad and my uncle, the 2 brothers, they grew up eating these, and so they really enjoy them.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I love it.
Me too. Okay.
Thanks for letting me taste test.
I hope you enjoyed these family recipes as much as we do.
Be sure to like and subscribe below. Thanks for cooking with us today.